Oh, hello everyone. Welcome back to another fanfiction for the MLF. Do you remember 2 years ago when I was reading the Shut Up and Dance with Me? It is a showdown where everybody in the gang of Voltron trying to show up their moves, and then all of a sudden, Lance's leg has gotten themselves no break a leg, and they have to perform all this dance for Keith. And Keith has to perform this dance for Lance because it has been shown on many times, and my goodness, Lance was an idiot. Falling off the stage and he broke his leg. And now they have everybody else to dance and move on to become champions or whatnot. But hey, it was a great ending though, but it's a wonderful story. They now have to show off their moves, and now I'm finally here. And the reason why I'm here making this video is to read you guys the deleted scene of this one. From the chapter 13, when at the very end where Lance is breaking the leg off the stage and Clan's not making love. Yeah, this is the scene that's right after where Key and Lance have to show their own stuff. So let's get this and jump right into it. I'm gonna give you guys what is a quick preview here. So I'm gonna take you guys to this deleted scene. So the deleted scene, this is where it takes place directly after the scene where Key and Lance have their heart in Cher's bedroom. But this is the Lance's point of view. This is his point of view. So let's get right into this one. So let's get this thing out of the way, and we are good to go. Alright, now let's get right into it. Let's get started with the chapter 13 of that deleted scene from Shut Up and Dance With Me. Lance missed this. He really missed this. He doesn't realize just how much he missed this until he has Keith in his arms. All rough angles, soft edges, solid and warm. As Lance leans into him, arms wrapped around him, fingers clutching desperately into the back of Keith's shirt, face buried in the crook of his shoulder, Lance feels something inside him melt. It's a wall of ice he hadn't been aware that he carried. One that he had built around his heart, concealing and protecting the little void that had remained, cooling the heat he kept there. All this chaotic feelings about Keith, numbing him to the pain of possible rejection. The veil of loneliness that had weighed on his shoulders since he broke his sled has lifted, since he started talking to his friends again, started letting them in. It felt lighter and more cheerful, more prone to smiling. They hold him up, keep him from falling back into the pit that he's been dwelling in. But while in the heaviness has been weighting him down is gone, he couldn't quite get rid of the shadows that haunted his heart. Keith had to become a source of anxiety for him, not the nervous but otherwise harmless fluttering of his heart, but a gut-wrenching anxiousness that made him feel sick to his stomach and like he couldn't breathe. So he still avoided Keith until his friends kicked his ass. Lance is proud and stubborn, but he can't admit when he needs an ass-kicking. And boy, did he need an ass-kicking. Because this is what he's been missing. What he's been missing. Keith. That barrier of ice melts. The heat inside of his heart flares up, soaking through his bones, tingling at his fingertips. He feels so light that he feels giddy. And if it weren't for the solid strength of Keith holding him down, he's certain he would drift away. How he ever thought staying away from Keith would be a good idea. How it would be better for them in the end. How it would save him hurt, but he'll never know. But fear makes people do strange things. Here and now, resting to Keith, feeling his hair tickle Lance's cheek and neck, feeling Keith's breath hot on his collarbones, feeling his lips on the exposed curve of his shoulder, Lance feels like this is where he belongs, where he always belonged. It feels like coming home, and that realization sends his poor heart into overdrive. All too soon, Keith is pushing him back, his gentle, hands on Lance's shoulders. He makes a small huff of protest, but leans back anyway. Keith doesn't let him go far, just enough that he can see Lance's face, which isn't exactly a face Lance wants him to see right now. He sniffles again, trying to be subtle about it, which is damn near impossible. He keeps his chin tilted down, head turned off to the side. He finally lets go of Keith's shirt to wipe at his cheeks, his eyes, rough and quick, trying to hide the evidence. It was only a few tears, but he knows his face is probably already getting blotchy, eyes red-rimmed. He's just really happy, okay? Happy and relieved and emotional. Can't help it, even if he hates it. Keith lets him have a moment to recollect himself, but Keith has never been a very patient person. Lance jumps as hands touch his face, fingers gently lifting his chin, forcing him to meet eyes like the evening sky. They're half-lidded, crinkled at the edges, lips tilted up into the barest of smiles. There's something teasing there, but the softness of it keeps Lance from bristling. Fingers ghost across his face, tips pushing into his hair, slender digits brushing against his ears. Lance just stares at him, slack-jawed and awed, as Keith looks him over. His thumbs gently caress his cheeks, wiping away the last traces of his tears. Keith is all hard edges and sharp angles. He's rough. His eyes are usually hard, calculating. There are walls there, walls that are tall and sturdy and tipped with barbed wire. His expression is usually a knife, sharp and dangerous, keeping people at bay. Here now, Keith is soft. Everything hard about him seems to melt away, letting Lance see the smooth curves of his face, the depths of his eyes unguarded, the plump swell of his lips, the way his cheeks lift when he's not entirely sure that he's smiling. This is a side of Keith that people don't usually get to see, yet it's one that Lance is becoming increasingly familiar with, one that he's growing incredibly fond of, one that Keith ends up putting on display whenever they're alone, like a secret between them. Lance is insanely honored that Keith trusts him enough to let his defenses down, but he almost wishes he wouldn't because it takes his damn breath away, makes him feel like he's fallen and there's no good to catch him. It's too much for his poor heart to take. He doesn't know if Keith pulls him in or if he closes the distance to himself. But one moment they're just sitting there, sharing the silence, comfortable and light, and the next moment they're kissing. It's soft, light, fleeting, like it's something fragile, breakable, and precious. And perhaps it is. It's not passionate, it's not desperate, it's not the heat and fire and need that oftentimes embodies the kisses they share. It's soft, warm, but not overbearing, salty and wet from his tears. Keith's lips are dry and chapped. There's no drive to it, nothing that pushes them for more, more, more. It's slow and easy. The briefest of touches before they pull back and dive back in, soft and tentative, fond and comforting. It makes Lance's head spin all the same. It's new, exhilarating, and he loves it. His hands return Keith's waist, holding it on tight like he might drift away. He pulls lightly, a tug that's more of a suggestion than anything. Keith reacts to it instantly. He shifts on the bed, leaning in closer, scooter until he's half in Lance's lap. His hands slide from Lance's face, wrapping around his shoulders, fingers digging into the silk fabric of his robe. They cling to each other, kisses soft and breathy, light and fleeting. When Lance tilts his head and licks along the seam of Keith's lips, he breathes in sharply through his nose, lets out a low groan, barely audible, and opens up instantly, tongue pushing back. Then they hear a muffled bump against the door, followed by muted and hushed voices. Lance freezes, feeling Keith go still against him. He leans back a fraction, eyes wide with surprise. He sees his expression and sentiments mirrored on Keith's face. Together, they both turn towards the door, and Lance's gaze falls into the shadows he sees blocking the light in the space beneath the door. His eyes narrow, and Keith stands, both their hands slipping away from each other. He anticipating, feeling disappointed at his loss, but his warmth lingers, and the fullness in Lance's chest remains. Keith sneaks to the door on padded feet and reaches out for the handle. He opens the door quickly, stepping back as he swings it open. There's a chorus of muffled shouts as everyone falls over themselves into the room, landing in a heap of bodies and limbs on the floor. Pitches at the bottom of the pile, and the loudest in the protest. "Oh, Jesus, get off! Oh my God, Matt, you're all elbows!" "You're not much better," he grumbles, falling off and to the side. Hunk is on his hands and knees behind him. Cheryl and Laura fall off to the side. Cheryl rubs at his head while Laura holds an arm to her ribs and groans. Coran pushes himself off the top of the pile, rubbing at his knee. They grumble and shout at each other, complaining as they peel away from the pile. Then, one by one, they lift their gazes, and all stare sheepishly between Keith and Lance. Keith stands next to the door, waist shifted lazily to one foot, arm crossed over his chest, expression of flat scowl. Lance sits at the edge of the bed where he was left, arms crossed over his chest, face unamused. Hunk says, offering a small nervous nod. Hi? Lance raises an eyebrow. Seriously? Paige rolls onto their stomach, pushing themselves back until they're sitting on their knees. Honestly, I'm not even sure why you're surprised. It was Allure's idea, Hunk says quickly. Then it wilts under Allure's glare. She sighs, turning to him, expression falsely innocent. We were just wondering how it was going. Allure and Matt had bets on whether or not you would try anything inappropriate in Shiro's bed. Coran adds heavily, ignoring the way Allure shoves him with her foot. Oh my god, Key groans, tucking his head and hiding his face in one hand. For the record, I know you wouldn't, Shiro adds, sheepish and apologetic, face flushing dark beneath his scar. Lance pointedly ignores the heat rising at the back of his neck, unsettling unpleasantly on his cheeks. He purses his lips, spreading his hands out the gesture to the bed. Well, clearly we didn't. Happy now? Depends, Paige says, trailing off, biting their bottom lip. Are you? Hunk supplies. Lance feels himself relax, small smile tugging at his lips. Yeah, he says, and it's lots like he intended. Yeah, I am. Really? Hunk says, visibly straightening, grin spreading across his face. Tentative smiles pressed across the room, crinkled eyes darting between himself and Keith. Keith's face is still tilted down, hair falling to cover his face as the redness of his blush persists. Yeah, he says, short and clipped, but soft beneath the edges. Yeah, we're good. The relief among their friends is palpable. Lance can't help but laugh, grinning at Keith and earning a small smile in return. They'll all end up in the kitchen. Shiro and Matt have a decent sized apartment for 2 people, but their tiny kitchen was never meant to hold 8 people. They make do anyway. Shiro and Lance end up sitting on the counter. Shiro helps Lance hop up onto it, and he lets out a surprised squeak when it's just slipped straight off the ground. He knows Shiro lips Allure all the time, but it's one thing to see it, and an entirely different one to experience it. Allure does the dishes for dinner, whirling around like a madwoman on a mission and shooing anyone in her way. After the 4th time Keith ends up in her way, Lance reaches out to hook a finger onto the back of his shirt, chuckling as he tugs Keith to him. He positions Keith to lean against the counter between his legs, leaning forward to drape his arms over Keith's shoulders. It's casually affectionate, something he would do with any of his friends, but that doesn't stop it from feeling different when it's Keith. It feels more intimate in ways that have his stomach doing flips. Heat's prickling at the back of his neck, and a thrill from shooting down his spine. That doesn't, however, stop him from doing it. Keith deals with it too, standing stiff with his arms crossed over his chest, but refusing to move away or push Lance off him. When they talk, Paige and Matt and Coran work across the kitchen on creating later shots. Lance has lost track of all the ingredients or what any of them are called, but each one is different and they all look amazing. Hunk, meanwhile, picks his homemade cupcakes out of the travel container and arranges them on a platter to carry to the living room. Hunk, buddy, my dude, my man, those look amazing, Lance says, chin perched atop Keith's head and arms resting on his shoulder, sticking out straight in front of him. Hunk flashes him a brilliant grin. Thanks. They're my new recipes I've been wanting to try. Shay helped him make them, Paige says, lifting her head from where the others are bent over bottles, smirked mischievous as the light refracts off their glasses. Hunk bristles, cheeks darkening as he turns back to the cupcakes. Well, yes, and some of them are her recipes. Why isn't she here? Lance asks, interrupting. Yeah, Allure says, dropping plates into the dishwasher. It's not about time you started inviting her around. She would have been welcome here, Shiro puts in, giving Hunk a warm smile. It's not like that, you know. I wasn't sure if this is a friend tradition and all. Plus, she had to work tonight, so she couldn't have come anyway. Next time, Matt says, lifting his head and pinning Hunk with a grin that's a fraction to bright eyes dancing with the same as sheep Lance knows from Fish. You ask her to hang out with us, or I will. I see her all the time at work. You would, Hunk gapes. Oh, yes, I would, Matt says with a laugh. Oh, for the love of God, Hunk, Fish says, dropping low to put their on their eye level with the shot they're trying to pour. Please don't make me kick your ass, too. I'm going to take these to the living room, Hunk announces. Voice a little too loud and a fraction too pitchy. Lance chuckles, reaching down to poke Keith's eyes. Carry me to the living room, would ya? Keith turned his head, eyebrow raised and lips pursed. What? Piggyback right, Keith, he says, wrapping his arms around Keith's neck, dropping his chin to his shoulder, and wrapping his legs as best as he can around his waist, with the boot still on one foot. Lance, come on! I'm broken! Have some pity! Oh my God, he says, but there's amusement buried beneath his exasperation. Lance knows him well enough to hear it. You're going to milk this, aren't you? Leslie's in trying to hide his grin. You bet your ass I am. If asked later, Lance will venomously deny the way he squeaked when Keith wrapped his hands around his thighs and lifted him off the counter. After unceremoniously dropping Lance back onto the love seat, ignoring his indignant protest about mistreatment, Keith's about to walk back to his previously claimed beanbag when Lance reaches out and grabs him. Keith looks at him curiously, and Lance purses his lips, giving his shirt a small tug as he nods to the seat next to him. Keith sits without much protest, unable to hide the telltale signs of his smile. Hunk, bless his soul, doesn't at all look surprised in the new seating arrangements, and wordlessly goes to sit in a beanbag next to Pidge. None of their friends comment on it, but they all sneak glances at him that are teasing and telling, and not at all as subtle as they think they are. Lance pointedly ignores them all. They take their specially made shots, once again cheering to friendship, but a little more light-hearted than it had been earlier. They settle in to continue their movie marathon, beer in one hand and a cupcake in the other. Everything tastes good. Everything feels good. He's high on it, laughing loudly with his friends and animatedly talking about whatever they watch. He loves this. He loves his friends. He loves these vibes. And he thinks he loves Keith. He doesn't know if it's a romantic love, but he definitely thinks it could be. But more importantly, Keith is his friend. Keith is part of his little makeshift family. Keith, against all odds, against anything Lance expected, has become a huge and important part of his life. Keith makes him feel good in far too many ways to name. Like it or not, romantic or not, he does love Keith. And he realizes the fact isn't as hard to swallow as he thought it might be. It settles over him like a breeze, cooling and soothing. A fact, the sky is blue, grass is green, water is wet. Lance loves his family. Lance loves his friends. And that means Lance loves Keith. Yeah, you could get used to the sound of that. They go through movies, cupcakes, popcorn, and beer. Alcohol busts pleasantly in his veins, sailing over them with warm laughter and voices that are a little too loud. It's pleasant and cozy. As the night wears on, they start to settle down and settle in. It's not entirely sure when Keith started leaning against him. But he knows it's somewhere in the middle of the road to El Dorado when he realizes that Keith's asleep. His own eyes are feeling heavy, and he glances around the room to find most of his friends are starting to droop as well. He shifts on the couch, pushing Keith up and to the side so he can swing his legs up onto the couch, lying down so he can still see the TV. Head propped up on a pillow against the armrest. Keith grumbles as he's poked and prodded, sleepy eyes open and glaring at Keith like a disgruntled cat. He can't help the quirk of his lips at the comparison, and reaches for Keith to pull him back down. He moves willingly, lying half on top of Lance and half wedged between him and the back of the couch. His head rests on Lance's shoulder, nuzzling himself into a comfortable position in a way that has Lance's heart squeezing. His hand comes to rest on Lance's chest, curled up lightly into the front of his robe. One leg is slung over his as he presses into Lance's side. It's an intimate position, and he knows it. But right now, he doesn't really care, and no one else seems to notice. Or maybe they're just not surprised. Matt makes his disappearance first, slicking out of his chair and patting Pidge and Honk on the head and padding off to his room. Pidge crawls up to his vacated chair and curls up beneath the blanket he abandoned. Cheryl and Laura leave next, making sure to dump a plethora of blankets and pillows in the living room before disappearing to Cheryl's room. By the time the movie ends, they're all ready to sleep. Lance pokes at Keith, ignoring his grumbles and threats until the boy is conscious enough for him to push him toward the bathroom to get ready. He goes, but it's begrudging. Lance waits for him to get back before hobbling to the bathroom, wincing every time a wayward crutch bangs into something or he nearly falls. Turns out crutches are annoying. Maneuvering on crutches while mildly intoxicated is even more so. By the time he gets back, Keith has managed to snag a blanket and is curled up on a love seat. He looks up as Lance approaches, lazily lifting an arm in an obvious invitation into his little cocoon. Lance sits, struggles out of his boots, and lays down, foot propped on the armrest on the other side of the couch. The love seat isn't necessarily big enough for them to both be lying down, but that's not stopping them. Keith curls up to his side, and they shift around until they're both somewhat comfortable beneath the blanket. Corinne and Honk make their own blanket nest on the other couch. Honk curls up against the arm of couch, disappearing beneath a blanket. Corinne stretched out on the other side, legs propped up on the back of the couch as he lies on his back. Before he settles in, Corinne selects the next movie and turns the volume down, keeping them company by allowing them to succumb to sleep. Lance closes his eyes, breathing out a long exhale. Contentment settles into his bones. Keith radiates enough warmth that it's nearly uncomfortable, and he doesn't mind. He doesn't mind that the small couch is cramped, and he'll probably have a knot in his neck come morning. He doesn't care because, despite it all, everything in this moment feels right. He's somewhere between sleep and consciousness, where it feels like he's drifting with one foot in his dreams and one ear on the movie playing distantly in the room. When he feels lips at his neck, they ghost across the skin at first, light and fleeting, ticking at the edges of his awareness. Then they get more insistent, tongue and teeth teasing his collarbone, drawing him further out of sleep. He sighs with it, pleasant tingles trickling down his spine, warmth cooling lower in his gut. Then Keith bites down and Lance gaps, surprised and light, back arching slightly off the couch. Before he's really aware of what's happening, Keith's hand is slipping beneath his robe, fingers feeling out of the planes of his chest, thumb playfully pressing against a nipple. Keith. Lance whines, a low whisper. Warning. It feels Keith's smile against his neck as he pushes up further, lips drifting lazily up the column of his neck, but with distinct pressure and purpose. His body shifts, leg hooking further around Lance's own, hips pressing into Lance's. Oh God, it feels so good to be pressed against him again. Keith locks his lips beneath Lance's ear, sucking gently at the spot he knows is extremely sensitive, the little itch. His hand drips lower, losing the tie of Lance's robe, pushing the flaps of it further apart. Lance catches his hands, whining low in his throat, pitiful and weak. We can't, he whispers, turning his head to catch Keith's eye. Keith leans back a fraction, lips pursed into a pout, eyes a little hazy with sleep and alcohol, but clear with his disappointment. Why not? But Lance can't help it. Not with the high he has from the weight lifting off his heart, the ice melting, being with friends, buzz of beer in his veins. He swoops in, closing a couple inches quickly, and presses his lips to Keith's. Firm enough for the kiss to be soft, but soft enough for their lips to mold together. He feels Keith melt against him, relaxing it to his side, held it just a little to his side. Lance pulls her, pressing their foreheads together, loving the feel of Keith's nose against his neck. His against Keith's. If we do stuff while Pidge is in the room, they will literally maim us. Keith's eyes flickered to the side, across the room, then returned to his. Small smile on his lips, then he sighs. letting his body slump back against Lance's side, nudging his head beneath of crooked Lance's chin. Fine, but you owe me a... Lance slaps at his arm, but wraps him up all the same. Why do I owe you a... Because you were an ass to me. Well, you can't clearly argue with that logic. Fair enough, he says easily, slouching into the cushions. Pulling the blanket up Keith's shoulders, he nuzzles Keith's hair, breathing in and letting his familiar scent wash over him. Good night, Keith. Good night, Lance. Comes the mumbled reply. He sounds like he's already halfway asleep again. For the first time in a long time, Lance feels truly content. He likes Keith like this, in his arms and snuggled up to his side. It's not exactly the thing you do with F-buddies or whatever the hell they are, but Lance could get used to it. Maybe, once all the dust settles, his leg isn't dragging him down, he'll ask Keith out on a date. Like a real date. Yeah, he likes that idea. Despite being cramped on a couch that's not big enough, with a small furnace pressed tight to his side, a chorus of Karana honks snoring. The soft murmur's pitch makes their sleep, and a soft blue glow on the TV behind his eyelids. Lance sleeps better than he has in weeks. Okay, well, there you go, guys. That is the deleted version of the story of the chapter 13. So according to her, this is a scene where she had originally outlined for Shadow Dance with chapter 13. It hasn't got used because the chapter itself was getting so long. It's very long. I just read like for 2 hours or something. Well, nearly 2 hours. Maybe it's 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And it's about where this scene is naturally ended. At the case of make a conversation. Just about right. So she left out this scene. She already outlined it, but had never put that on to the actual story. So that was the chapter 13 that you have seen it a little before, but it'll never be used at all. At all. Okay, guys. Well, that's about it. And thank you guys so much for watching for this video, and I'll see you next time with another story. Maybe another clan story, or it could be something else. Okay, guys. Goodbye, everyone.